Wendell. There were 56 chairs set out for the funeral. I know for sure because I counted them while everyone else cried. Karina had insisted on the silver-trimmed ones because they photographed better. But one chair, next to her, stayed empty. My chair. She told the usher that I would make things complicated. Complicated? More complicated than secretly texting your attorney about divorce filings while your father is in a casket? I stood at the back, not with family, not with relatives, next to a ficus tree. She gave a perfect speech, shed perfect tears. Just enough to seem human, but not enough to smudge her makeup. And then, on her way out, she did something that started it all. She accidentally dropped her handkerchief, and as I bent down, I saw it. In her clutch, the corner of a document. And on it, my name. In bold. Next to a case number. That's when I realized she had filed for divorce before the funeral, before the tears had dried. In 2 days, she would inherit $250 million. And 2 days after that, she would hand me an envelope saying, "I'm choosing myself." But neither of us knew that her father's will had very different plans. I drove to their estate that day with one thought. Why? She had already taken everything. But that slip of paper with my name on it wouldn't leave me alone. Why would Glenn Darby, the man who called me his lawn ornament, even mention me in his will? The lawyer began to read. Then came the phrase, "The will was updated 2 months ago." I remembered Karina visiting her father alone. "You'd be bored," she had said. Now, I wasn't so sure. And then, the moment came. To my daughter, Karina Elise Darby, I leave the sum of $1 million. The room went silent. I saw her blink, just once. "Did you mean 100 million?" she asked. The lawyer adjusted his glasses. "No, 1 million. The remainder of Mr. Darby's estate," he continued, "will be transferred to the man who married my daughter, knowing she would one day despise him, who tolerated my cruelty with dignity. To Wendell Thomas Carr, I leave him everything else. I had become the heir to a $250 million empire. I walked out of the room. I needed air. Karina ran after me. "Wendell!" she called out. But for the first time in my life, I wasn't the one being left behind. The next day, she found me at my job, leaning against her BMW as if nothing had happened. There was no remorse in her eyes, just a cold, calculated hunger. "You don't deserve this, Wendell," she said. Not an apology, not regret, just a fact. "You were a mistake that lasted too long." She offered me a folder, a proposal to divide the assets, to let me walk away with dignity before I could embarrass us both. Part of me almost believed her, that I didn't belong in that world. But another part, a quiet voice inside me said, "Maybe you do." I didn't take the folder. For the first time, I had something I never had before. Leverage. A few days later, another of Glenn's lawyers called me. "You need to review some supplemental documents," he said. In a glass tower I used to be afraid to enter, I was handed a sealed envelope, and there it was. A section labeled Addendum, Conditions of Inheritance. It turned out Glenn wasn't just bitter. He was brilliantly cruel. Nearly 40 of the inheritance was locked in a trust. It would only activate if I remained divorced from Karina for at least 18 consecutive months. If I got back together with her, married or not, all of that money would go to a sanctuary for abandoned dogs. Glenn had literally designed a clause to punish me if I ever forgave her. It was a loyalty test from beyond the grave. And at the end, a handwritten note from him. Wendell, if you are tempted to return to the cage, remember, you were never the pet. She only knew how to feed you. Don't let her leash you again. Karina didn't give up. She showed up again, this time with red eyes, looking almost human. She tried to appeal to my pity. But then, something strange happened. I received an envelope with no stamp. My name was printed in red ink. Inside, a note. There are things you don't know. Be careful with Glenn's secrets. It wasn't Karina's style. She demanded. She didn't warn. I started digging, and I found it. In a folder labeled Miscellaneous Correspondence were printed emails from Glenn's private server, and there it was. A thread. Subject: Karina's request, urgency noted. 2 weeks before Glenn's death, Karina had requested the destruction of a file named Addendum C, disqualification clause. She knew. She knew about the clause that disinherited her and tried to destroy it while her father was still alive. Her visits, her fake tears. It wasn't manipulation. It was damage control. But Glenn had left more than just emails. He had left a video. It took me a week to get access to his private library, a place I had never been allowed to enter. An old estate employee handed me a key to a hidden drawer. Inside was a flash drive. Library, July 10th, final record. I watched it alone in a locked study. It was raw security footage. It showed Karina and Glenn 3 days before he died. You hate me so much, you'd rather give your empire to a man who unclogged your toilet. He's weak, Dad. He doesn't even know how to dress himself. You made your choice, Glenn said, his voice cold and tired. You left him while I was still alive, and I lived long enough to rewrite the will. This isn't about love. This is punishment. No, Glenn replied. It's protection. I'm protecting my legacy from you. It all made sense, but it wasn't over. There was one more envelope in the files. Private. To be read after death. Inside was a letter from Glenn. Wendell, it read, I do believe I will die of natural causes. I know my daughter. After her last visit, I started having pains. She brought me a new tea for a cleanse. If I did not go peacefully, promise me. Do not let her walk away untouched. I checked the security logs. That weekend, Karina had entered her father's private quarters 7 times, all between midnight and 4 a.m., a place where guests were never allowed. It wasn't enough for the police, but it was enough for me. I called her. I found the video, Karina, and the letter, I said. Silence. And I know about the 7 visits to his bedroom at night. Her voice trembled. What do you want? She asked. For the first time, she didn't pretend to be innocent. Nothing, I said. I want nothing from you, and I will give you nothing. No money. No silence. No protection. You're going to spend the rest of your life flinching every time a doorbell rings. I hung up, but I didn't wait. I hired Glenn's private investigator. He already had his own suspicions. We found receipts from pharmacies, financial transfers. She had been buying the same cleansing powders Glenn had written about. We took it to civil court. And there, in that courtroom, the full weight of Glenn Darby's empire came crashing down on her. She lost, on all counts. The court upheld the will, the video, the letter. She walked away with nothing. Her accounts were frozen, the money redirected to charity. I didn't buy a yacht. I moved to a quiet house by a lake and adopted 2 senior dogs from that very sanctuary. I learned how to sleep again. Not long ago I got a letter. No return address. 1 sentence inside. You ruined everything. I let the dogs chew it up. Because she's wrong. I didn't ruin anything. I saved what was left of me. And that was worth far more than $250 million.